Hello. Sorry guys, I put the microphone in the headset bit. So I was just chatting away there and no one could hear. Thankfully someone told me. So I have to do all that again. So hi guys, welcome to live stream. If this is the first time you've been on live stream, then I do these talks every Sunday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. French time. If you want to call in, you call in through Skype. If you want to ask a question, you do that through Skype. My Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. And if you want to call in, first of all, make sure you have a headset with a microphone so the sound quality is good. And secondly, if you could write beforehand what you want to talk about, as I have lots of people asking to call in at the moment, and I think it's good to have a diverse amount of questions so I can be more selective. Sometimes sometimes I find that there's a couple of questions or people wanted to call in about the same problem or the same issue, and so it's nice to be able to see what it is you'd like to talk about beforehand. If you'd like to join me for one of my events, then the next event is this Saturday. It's an online meditation at 5 p.m. French time. You can find the information below. If you want to come to my retreat, which is the 7th of July, you can find the information below or in that little eye. I also have a retreat in Spain the end of October and one in January in India. So you can find all that information on my website. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get updates about when I go live, then I'm going to show you how to, as people keep asking me how to do that. So you have to first of all have an account, and when you have an account, sign in and then go to YouTube and go to the page that you want to subscribe to. I'm just going to pick an animal page, I think. So you click on that. So you click on Lisa Cairns and then you press subscribe. But that's not all. Then you press the bell next to subscribe, and then you've also got to check your settings. So go down to settings and just check that in the notifications, just check that you've got send me emails ticked, so you can see where it is. And also, when you've unsubscribed, you have to unsubscribe from unsubscribing. A little complex. The animals might be really loud tonight. They seem to be making lots of noises. They're crickets and I'm not sure what else it is. It's crickets and maybe frogs. I don't know what's making that noise. Yeah. I've been told that it's better to close the window, the sound is going bad. Yeah, they're very loud, the crickets. They're super loud. It's like a bulldozer coming through when they all like suddenly start singing. Okay, so I'm going to put some music on, as that seemed to go really well last time. And people enjoyed it. I normally like to sit in silence first, but as YouTube didn't ban any talks, in any countries, I'm going to play some more, and let's see how much I can push them to allow me to play music. Basically what they require is you have to pay them copyright money normally. Like, so the ads has to go to them, like they monetize your video.
Just before our love got lost, you said, I am as constant as a northern star. And I said, constantly in the darkness, where's that at? If you want me, I'll be in the bar. On the back of a cartoon coaster, in the blue TV screen light, I drew a map of Canada, oh Canada, with your face sketched on it twice. Oh, you're in my blood like holy wine. It tastes so bitter and so sweet. Oh, I could drink a case of you, darling, and I would still be on my feet. Oh, I would still be on my feet. Oh, I am a lonely painter. I live in a box of paints. I'm frightened by the devil, and I'm drawn to those ones that ain't afraid. I remember that time you told me, you said, love is touching souls. Surely you touch mine, 'cause part of you pours out of me in these lines from time to time. Oh, you're in my blood like holy wine. It tastes so bitter and so sweet. Oh, I could drink a case of you, darling. Still I'd be on my feet. I would still be on my feet. I met a woman, she had a mouth like yours. She knew your life, she knew your devils and your deeds, and she said, go to him, stay with him if you can, but be prepared to bleed. Oh, but you are in my blood, you're my holy wine. You're so bitter, bitter and so sweet. Oh, I could drink a case of you, darling. Still I'd be on my feet. I would still be on my feet. think about it, there must be a higher love down in the heart, hidden in the stars above. Without it, life is wasted time. Look inside your heart, I'll look inside mine. Things look so bad everywhere in this whole world. What's fair? We walk blind, we try to see, falling behind and what could be. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. There's this higher love I've been thinking of. Was a time we're just hanging on, facing our fears and standing out there alone. Are we yearning? And it's real for me. There must be someone who's feeling for me. Things look so bad everywhere in this whole world. What's fair? We walk blind, we try to see, falling behind in what could be. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Where's this higher love I've been thinking of? I will wait for it. I'm not too late for it. Until then, I'll sing my song to cheer the night along. I can light the night up with my soul on fire. I can make the sun shine from pure desire. Let me feel the love come over me. Let me feel how strong it can be. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. I could rise above on this higher love.
So hey guys, welcome to the stream. I'm roasting away a little here. Oh, we still got more music going. Let me just remind myself of the title again. The difference between emotionally dumping and expressing a problem. So I think all of us have been guilty at time to time emotionally dumping on another person. I don't think there's anyone that's not done that. Basically, the difference is emotionally dumping is when you are just trying to relieve the stress in your body by telling the story. So you're just letting the stress out onto the other person. And talking about a problem is when you have a goal to heal or resolve that problem. Like you're expressing it because you actually want to resolve it. And you're expressing it through the desire to change in some way. It's very simple. It's only my definition of it. It's not what I'm sure all the psychologists say it is, but this would be my definition of the difference. And it can feel very good emotionally, like letting it out. It's like it's all been bubbling away inside of you, and then suddenly you explode onto the other person, and it feels really good to rant about what an asshole your partner is. It might even in some way feel good for the other person, because the other person might feel like they're helping or doing something. But it's always like a stuck program, like it's like feeding off itself. It's like a stuck program that's not looking to expand and change, but just to have a quick fix, like by moaning about something or a certain situation. And it just encourages that. It just will make you feel worse. And then there's a different type of sharing where you're sharing to actually try to expand, because your goal is to let go of it, not to keep going round about it and just trying to let out some energy from it. The key is more than likely you don't know what the difference is. You don't know the difference between those two dynamics because you're not aware of what your body wants and what your body's doing. And so this is where you have to learn what your body's saying to you and what your body's actually wanting from the situation. So even in this, right now, what is it that you're wanting from listening to this talk? Are you wanting to switch off? Are you hoping that my energy will transform you? Are you wanting to learn from me? Are you enjoying it? Are you liking the intellectual side of things? Are you liking the energy? Are you not wanting to do something else, and so this is your secret escape? Maybe you're listening to it as background noise while you're doing some other work. But a lot of the time we're totally unconscious of what it is we want. The reason we're unconscious of it is because that's how we're taught by society. We're sort of taught to live in all these lies that are piled on top of each other. So primarily the main lie being that you are a separate self. And then we're taught all these bizarre things. So you begin to make up these stories about why you're doing something, and it's actually really removed from why you're doing something. So maybe you're doing something because you want to get attention from someone, but in your mind you're telling yourself, oh, I need to ask them a question about a practical reason. I need to know an answer for this piece of paperwork that I have to fill out. And really, inside your heart, you're wanting attention and you're wanting connection. And this is where all the suffering lies. First of all, the idea that you are someone separate from what's happening. And then all these stories begin to form about you and your life. And what you believe to be true, which is most probably really different from what's actually happening. And you forget about your body because your body doesn't line up with what you believe to be true, because what you believe to be true is not true most of the time. It's a lie. It's not actually what's happening. So your body's like, meh, 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 meh. Our bodies are incredibly sensitive and can really pick up what's happening in a situation. So most humans are walking around living in this lie of themselves, of who they believe themselves to be and who they want to be intellectually. And they have no clue actually what it is underneath that they want, what it is in the unconscious level that they're up to. And we're very simple. We are super simple. Although maybe you like to believe that you're more complicated than you actually are, it's actually super simple the way that you are. Isn't it, Khaleesi? Huh? So on the very simple basic level, a human is set up to seek for survival, or to move towards survival, not seek, but to move towards survival and reproduction on the very basic level. The spiritual is in all of that. The spiritual is that. To some people, if you're into the spiritual, you think, that sounds very cold and dry of her. But on the human level, we're set up to reproduce and to create, to survive. So to create things, we're really creative beings. We can do all these amazing things with our mind. And so everything is about that on the human level. Isn't that? That's really simple. Why didn't anyone tell you that in school? I'm sure you don't believe me. I'm sure you're like, actually, Lisa, I'm a lot more complicated than that. There is another complication in there that's slightly more tricky, is also there's another part to you. So on the human level, maybe there is this survival part happening, but there's another part that wants home. So the body is set up to always survive, but there's another part that wants home. And that part is, I suppose, coming from this seeking energy that's dreaming about itself and seeking in time for itself. So this is the seeking energy, creates this feeling of discomfort. So there's another part that's looking for love, which is home. So this human has these dynamics of that you're set up to survive and to reproduce your genes and to survive in this society and to help other people survive as well. And then there's another part of you that always feels like it's lost something, and then it's looking for home, love. And that's who you are. I don't know why that is set up. I don't know why it's set up that we feel like we lose love and we get caught up in this seeking energy. Maybe it really is about consciousness waking up to itself, like it's expanding and getting more and more complicated, and it's waking up its dream. It's creating this instrument that's looking in the dream that remembers who it is, or these multiple instruments that are remembering who they are. So consciousness is waking up to itself with this human dualistic perspective. It's really quite miraculous. So it's actually, when you break it down, those are the two running motivations. When the seeking energy is there, you're seeking to get love, plus the body is always moving towards survival and reproduction. And that body, the human body that's moving towards survival and reproduction, that's not necessarily coming from a suffering energy. If the seeker's there, then this will all be suffering energy, like it will be difficult. The survival, the fear around money, the fear around production. But we get ourselves incredibly complicated. So we become incredibly complicated because we begin to make up all these stories about ourselves where we think we're good people. Now, that's a very abstract thought. Everybody believes in this thought. Are you a good person or a bad person? I am a good person. Let me show you. And actually, it's an abstract thought. What is a good person? What is a good tree? What is a good wind? Is the wind good when it doesn't create storms? Is a tree good when it doesn't take any food from the soil, any rain from the soil, and lets itself die? Good and bad is a very interesting subject. In our society, we have moral codes, and I completely think that we should have moral codes, and I'm super happy they're there. I'm super happy that somebody doesn't just decide to walk into my house and say, I'm living here, I am stronger than you, and I'm going to take your house. So I'm really happy there is moral codes. Some of them I'm not so keen on, but that's part of living in a collective society of humans. So just that idea is bizarre idea. And the ideas say that you're beautiful, or that you're perfect, or that you have to be perfect, or that somebody's done something really terrible to you. All of these are ideas. They're not actually reality. Did the storm do something terrible to the earth when it flashed lightning at it? On the ultimate level, someone hasn't done something terrible to you. It's just life happening. Is the ocean really bad when it becomes really choppy and the boats sink? What is good and bad? The same with all the ideas that you think about yourself. And all these ideas that you think about yourself affect you, because when you think about them, thinking isn't empty. Thinking comes with particular feelings. So if you start thinking about what an asshole somebody is, and then your body starts being like, who's an asshole? And when you start thinking about how someone wonderful is, someone is, you're like, they're wonderful. So our stories have an effect on the body. They affect our feelings and what we feel. So if you wanted really good feelings all the time, then all you need to do is think good things all the time. But it's not so simple, right? Because our mind isn't designed to do that, to think good things all the time. And also you might begin to see that you're not the controller of the mind. When did you ever control your mind? Who are you if you're not the mind? If you're like, who is this person? Isn't that part of the mind? But anyway, back to subject. So we walk around with a bundle of these stories. They have particular feelings in our body, either positive or negative feelings in our body. If you think things are going wonderfully, then it feels wonderful. If you think they're going terribly, then it feels terrible. And normally we have a specific pattern that our brain thinks. So we have these neural pathways, and they sort of tend to go in the similar circles. And then we do spirituality and we change them slightly. They tend to have a similarity to them. And we believe that what we think is true. And by this point, when we're completely identified with thinking, it's forget feelings, forget what you feel. It's all about thinking. So say if you are having a conversation and you're really not enjoying it and your body's really hurting, you might be telling yourself the story of how important this person is and how well the conversation's going. And so you're completely not aware that inside yourself you just want to get up and walk away. And you might be thinking someone's being really rude, but then your brain is telling you, oh, they're being really nice. But your body's really uncomfortable. But you're saying, oh, look how nice they're being. Because they're like, hello, and they're doing all the maybe fake friendly stuff. And we just get used to living in that reality of what our mind tells us, what our thoughts tell us. We forget about the feeling body. We forget about this other part of us, which is really profound and wonderful, and maybe knows a lot more than what we think, because what we think is so much conditioned by other people. And the problem with, though, going back to the feelings, is your feelings become really confused, because you're having all these feelings now from all these years and years of stories, but below all those feelings, there is this natural flow of what your body wants and doesn't want. This natural flow. And this natural flow is crazy, like crazy in the sense it's like the wild lover. Like it doesn't have reason. It doesn't think this is a bad idea because the tree might fall on my head. It just has a natural impulse. And I'm not saying that you should totally live by that. I see the benefits of the intellect, but living solely through the intellect cuts off 90%, I suppose, of yourself. This huge experience of yourself, and this intelligence and this knowledge. Like these bodies know so much. Khaleesi amazes me that every day she knows what time dinner is. She doesn't have a brain to think like we do. She doesn't have to look at her watch and be like, She amazes me. Apparently, I've not seen this, but I've seen her do it with my mum. But when I'm coming back to my house and my mum's in, Khaleesi is up looking for me and excited before I've even got close to the house in my car or if I'm walking. So I'm not even in the driveway and she's already knows I'm coming. Like maybe even 5 minutes before. So it's not smell either. She also always knows when dinner time is. She can sometimes sense when I'm just about to take her for a walk. When we're out in the forest, I'm sure she can smell it, but if she gets thirsty, she can lead us to water. But I'm sure that smell, I'm not sure if water smells of anything. I can smell water actually. Well, I'm not sure what the smell of water is, but I certainly can smell water, whether it's bacteria in the water or bog in the water or something, or chlorine or chemicals. I'm not sure. And we have these natural intelligences inside our body. Our body knows so much more than what our mind does. So much more. And we think that what we're living in is reality and is the way it is. It creates great conflict and lots of arguments amongst people. And I'm not claiming that I fully have accessed that point. Like, it's something that I still learn about and expand into. Like, I find that there's so much more my body knows than my mind knows. But we're taught as humans to always follow logic. But it's amazing. I can tell so much about someone when I meet them. It's just trusting it. I don't always trust it because their story, what they tell you, is so different to what you feel they're like. And then afterwards, when you get to know them a bit, you kind of have this memory that you kind of knew that in the beginning. And in arguments, there's so much, like if a friend of mine is getting angry with me, I can often feel like I can feel it that they're getting angry with me, or I can feel that there's tension, they've got tension with me. Sometimes before someone calls me, I can feel they're going to call you, and all of us have this, not just me, all of us, and you know what I'm talking about. But this part is scary because if we listen to logic, then we've got a set of rules that we will work by. If we listen to this other part of us, then it's uncontrollable. How can you control another if you teach them to follow their flow? You can control another if you manipulate them through the mind or physically. But if you teach them to follow their flow, then they become radically independent. It's sweet. And this natural flow, and I'm not saying we should totally ignore thinking. Thinking is logical, like you put the information in, but then you let the body do its thing. Like, you only need to put the information in a limited amount of times, and then you let the body take over. And it's like an art, unpicking yourself from all the stories that you tell yourself about what's happening. And the key to it is to unpicking it. And I know I hammer on about this, but here I go with my hammer again. That's my hammer, just in case you can't see the hammer. Here we go. That's my hammer. And get this, right, with Delici, what I never understood about Delici is that she never lived in a house until she came back to Europe from Thailand. And she never experienced having a door, because I lived in a bungalow, like you didn't really have doors. It just was all open plan. It was like outside on stilts, and she just came and left when she felt like it. And I didn't really ever lock the door, maybe if I was going out, but not always then. But she was never locked inside. She was a wild dog living in nature. She just used my balcony as the bed. So we never had a door, and we never had. But when she came back to Europe, as soon as she heard the doorbell or knocking, she always knew what it was. It's like genetic in her imprint. Like she knew. She just knew that that meant somebody coming to the house, that meant bark, even though she'd never experienced it before. It's like ancestral, passed down. Okay, so back to my point. What was my point? Je ne sais pas. It always comes. If I sit here, it comes. It sometimes takes time. So it's really radically liberating to follow your flow. Like your body knows what to do. You need to put the information in. So you put the intellectual information in, like a train comes now, this train comes then, I've got the choice between this and that. This is called table, that is called floor. So you put the information in and then your body knows what to do. And then your mind starts, but it's going to be a disaster. If I do it like that, it will be a disaster, because my dad always taught me that it was a disaster if things were done like that. But I'm not conscious that my dad always taught me that. So I'm just going to say it was a disaster and that's what I think and that's fact. And that's the way it is. It's going to be a disaster. You have to plan things out. And as soon as you get into that negative flow over something mental, you know that you've gone into old thought patterns that aren't in flow, that you don't need to go into. It's like taught thought patterns that collective society has generated. So you recognize that you're in an old thought process of negativity, because it begins to feel shut and closed and contracted. And then you say, what is it that I want? I want it to work out, and I want to sit on top of the train and scream at the top of my voice. And if you find that your being is radiating with love when you think that, or, sorry, I just drank fizzy water. It's like I purposely want to produce gas when I'm live. I apologize, guys. It's some deep unconscious pattern that just is working out. It's like I have to produce gas. It's like I was always told in school I was not allowed to produce gas, so here I am producing gas. It's a joke. Could be true. So if you feel expansive towards that, then that's what you've got to do. So if you begin to have negativity, it's going to be a disaster and you feel tight and contracted, just to move away from the choice and then come back in it when you feel positive. And what is it I want? And you find what you want by that which feels more expansive. Feel it in your body. Not you'll go around in your mind forever, but this could happen, that could happen, this could happen, that could happen, this could happen, that could happen. You only put in the information in the start. You don't keep going around with it. You just say, okay, I want to go on the train. I might get hit by a branch. I might get knocked out. I might get arrested. I might have a massive awakening experience. I might love it. So you list all that out. You put it in. And what is it that makes you feel expansive? I might get arrested. I want to go on top of the train. I don't want to go on top of the train. So that's what you do. It's really simple. And if you begin to get into a mind spin about something, just move away and wait until the mind spin stops. But maybe it's really simple for me because I'm so aware of my body. And I can get into negative mind spins about things sometimes. I think it's a condition of humans. I think it's part of human conditioning. Like I can perceive something as negativity, but I can see it very quickly and I never believe it's true. Even though I might act like it's true in the moment, like meh, 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 meh. Like there's a knowing that it's not true. The seeking comes from this unconsciousness and this living in this mental activity of who you are. Who you are is none of that. Who you are is this alive presence that's here. And life is not complicated. Life does not need to be complicated. It isn't complicated. It's very simple. It's got complicated because of all these thought processes that you've been taught and all these neural pathways that you've grown about things. And really you just want to come back to the simplicity of what is. Thinking is only needed to help improve your survival. On the human level, you're striving towards surviving well. That's all what thinking's needed for. It's that simple. And when that enjoyment comes, it's beautiful to meet a partner and to mate and to have children. In that comes enjoyment. Like Delici loves playing games which are based around her hunting. She loves flirting with the boy doggies in town. I give her the option off most days between walking in the forest and walking in town. She always picks town because she wants to go and see the boys. I know, Delici. I know. She would like a boyfriend. I'm ruining your reputation here. I'm saying that you're after the boys. It's so sweet. I would prefer to be walking in the forest, but she loves walking in the town. She's also looking for food as well. She's a scavenger. Even though she doesn't want it, she just still looks for it because that's the enjoyment there. So there's enjoyment in all of these things, but they become unenjoyable because you're living in this mental idea of who you are. And none of it's true. And you don't need to get rid of all that conditioning. You need to lighten it up to an extent, but you don't need to get rid of it. These conditions are maybe there for life with this body because that's the way the body's grown, but it's seeing they're not true and not always following them. Sometimes you follow them because sometimes your conditioning is super helpful. Like it's helpful not to walk out in the middle of a road when a car's coming, but sometimes it creates more pain for you, and maybe over time you'll learn not to follow that. So when I'm in French class, so this is something I talk about a lot now because I'm studying French, I mustn't, because of my dyslexia and what happened to me at school, I mustn't get into a thought process of I can't. So if I feel it coming up, then I just stop and I recognize that a thought's coming up saying I can't do this, and I see that's not true. When I was a child, I really believed that. That's not true, that I can't do this. Of course I can do it. Of course I can learn another language, even if I'm English. The English in Europe are renowned for being lazy with languages. And so I just have to pause, see that that's not true, and you just laugh at yourself. Of course you can do it. That very belief that I can't do it is what's going to stop me from learning it. I might not be as quick as others, but who cares? Why is quickness great? Or why is quickness better? But when I was a child, I used to think that not being as quick as other kids or not being able to do things like other kids meant that I couldn't do it. This is where we become unconscious, and then we seek in this timeline so to be something. So I got into this mentality of I couldn't do things, I was dyslexic, I was disabled. They even called me disabled, and I used to get into that mentality. And then I used to believe that about myself. I almost used to attract it because it would make me exhausted and not want to study things. So I almost attracted that towards myself. And then I got sort of buzzes out of telling, like not telling people, but like getting extra attention, or being allowed to go to the toilet a lot, or being different from everybody else. So there were like benefits in there for me, particularly getting out of class. And even actually in being sad about it, there was some joy in it because it gave me a problem. It gave me something. It gave me something to be. But none of these stories are true about ourselves. And we often formulate these stories and then we get stuck in the negative stories because the negative stories have immense power to them. They create strong emotion, and then we kind of get addicted to it. The emotion gives us endorphins, and then we get addicted to repeating that. And that's when you're emotionally dumping, where you keep like emotionally dumping about something and repeating that story again and again and again. Like the story we've had the last couple of weeks of I've tried everything and nothing works for me. That's obviously a story and it's not true, but the people I'm speaking with can't see that it's not true. Or the people that I spoke to in the last sessions can't see it's not true. They're so convinced that it's true. So convinced. And by the end of me speaking and working with them, they're like, but what do I do? I've done everything and nothing seems to work. I'm like, it's not true. It's a thought. You just need to recognize the thought and drop it. And it's not even you doing it. It's a functioning that happens. It's a recognition and a functioning of dropping that thought. It's something that happens. It happens because that's not you. Even that idea that that's you is an idea that's not true. It's an idea. Who is this you? Who moves this hand? Who thinks these thoughts? Who sees from these eyes? Who speaks from this mouth? That is even a thought. The idea of you is even a thought that comes and goes. In this moment, in the thought, without thinking, who are you? God, I love this subject. It's so exciting. And this moment, who you are, is love. It's my little dashboard on the computer. It's quite cool, eh? But I'm not saying that you have to get rid of all your conditioning. I certainly haven't. I still have my old characteristics coming up. It's the detachment to them. It's this movement back from them. And sometimes mine act out, and they act out for a bit, and then there's a realization that they're acting out. But it's this movement from them that you aren't that you're this free presence. That's the freedom. It's not in being a perfect person. Like, we live in this society and we've been bred into society with all these ideas and energies and ways of being. I don't think there will ever be or can ever be an enlightened human. Like, firstly, the human doesn't exist as an independent entity. There is consciousness as a live presence experiencing itself. And then how can you enlighten billions of conditions? So my body is made up of all these billion things. I don't know if it's billion things, but let's just say it's a billion things. Like all these cells, this blood, organs, muscles, chemicals, lots of water. So it's lined up with all these things. Sorry, did I say lined up? It's made of all these things, and it's always going to have conditions to it, no matter what. You can't uncondition something, just like the water is going to have condition to it, and the tree is going to have a condition to it. And there isn't like a singular entity there. There's lots of forces that come together. Even interacting with somebody makes you a different person, or makes your conditions react differently, so it makes a different person. Going into a group makes a different person. It's just that our mind is constantly fixated on this idea of one singular person where there isn't. So you go into a room full of people, and then this personality structure, these conditions change. When you're by yourself, they change. When you're with your animals, they change. When you're in nature, they change. But we get into this idea of wanting this perfect, enlightened being, or to become a perfect, enlightened being. And this is just going to create loads of seeking in you, because this isn't possible. This is impossible. Like the human has its condition, just like the dog has its condition. and the bird has its condition. But what can happen is a detachment from the person and a seeing and a waking up to you being present, and that changes things. But the human's never going to be enlightened. If you believe, the human, that you're going to one day be perfect, you're always going to be in the wheel of suffering, because you're always going to have this idea in your head, an idea of what perfection is. So perfection is no negative emotions, no anger, no jealousy, no rage, no negativity. And then if you go even further, you can say positive things only come to me because the externals are a reflection of the internal, so there's no conflict. And this imagine meeting this person that had no conditions. What would they look like? When I was younger, I tried to write a theatre piece on an enlightened person, like what an enlightened person would be like, and I couldn't get the character to do anything because they have to have conditions to move. They have to have wants to move, and as soon as you have wants, you have conditions. So even if it's to express reality, there's still a want to express reality, which requires particular conditions. So say if you're living with this enlightened perfect person, so let's imagine this, so you've got this idea of this enlightened person that's perfect. So imagine if you're living with that enlightened person. And that person repetitively walks mud onto the doormat. So they come in and they put mud on the doormat and they never clean it up. And when you get into a discussion with them and ask them, you know, could you clean it up? They say sure, and then the next day they don't, and they don't. You see, you don't imagine these details when you're imagining a enlightened person, but I've been around so many people that had these awakening experiences or awakened, and you just miss the details. So say they repetitively, and then they say, okay, yeah, sure, tomorrow I'll clear it up. But then they come in and they don't clear it up again. It keeps going on like this. That you ask them to clean it up and they don't, or they clean it up, but it's still not very good. And then eventually you say to them, maybe eventually you get angry with them. Or eventually you say to them, why do you keep doing that? What do you imagine their response is going to be? You imagine their response is going to be, there's nobody here doing anything. I think that you like that idea, because then that gets you, if you're enlightened, that gets you out of ever doing anything wrong again. You can always be right. But imagine if you did live with someone and their response was, there is nobody doing it, it's just happening. So imagine their actions get more extreme. They never clean up their plates in the kitchen. They always leave it for you. And then they keep saying to you, there's nobody doing it, it's just happening. So you clean up all their plates, you clean up their mud, you clean up their plate, you clear all their clothes, and it gets more and more extreme. Whereas I would just see that them not doing those things is their conditioning. It might be for lots of different reasons. It might be that their mum nagged them lots as a child, or never did, they were never expected to do anything around the house. Now to me, a balanced person, so somebody that's had an awakening and has become a more balanced person, after they repetitively keep leaving the mud on the carpet, and they understand, like, it's not, I mean, walking mud into the house, someone's got to clean it up, otherwise eventually you're just going to live in mud. So they're a rational human being, they can see that, they can understand that with their brain. So a more balanced human being, as you would say to them, how come you keep leaving mud on the carpet and expecting me to clean it up? A more balanced person would say, oh yeah, sorry, when I was a child I was never expected to do anything, so I just forget. I never remember to do it. Maybe you could help remind me to do it. Or maybe we could come to a compromise, like you clean up this mud and then I'll clean up something else. Somebody that says to you, There is nobody that does it. Mud is just happening. This could, on your side, be really amazing for you if you took it in the right way and saw it as something to awaken you, like that annoyance at them. So you saw something as awakening. But maybe they think they're your teacher, or they're trying to teach you something or show you something, which could be really beautiful. But then the third thing, so I've given you two other explanations, but the third thing is that seems like spiritual bypassing. That doesn't seem this seems like an idea of what they've got about spirituality, and basically they don't want to clean up the mud, and then they're just saying that to get out of it and be right. So you imagine like this idea of a perfect person with this perfect life that never has conflict and never has arguments and doesn't have any conditions, but think about it logically. Think about what that means logically. The best you can do on the human level is be as vulnerable and open to your conditionings and as aware of them as you can be, without just be as open as you can. The problem is if the people around you aren't so open, that can be a lot more complicated, because if they're living in lots of lies about themselves, then communication could be really difficult. And if you were that vulnerable and open with someone that's living in lots of lies, then they'll just use it to manipulate you. That's but internally you could do that. The reason that we obsess about this idea of a perfect guru, this perfect figure, it's like what we do with everything. So it's like exactly what we do with, say, the celebrity or the model that's airbrushed. You know, that the photos are taken and they airbrush them to make them look more perfect. And it's also like these celebrity magazines like Hello, where it's always presenting like this perfect life with these really smart sofa and really beautiful houses. It's like this dream that we want to dream of perfection. And that dream is a thought and an image coming up into your head. And it's got nothing to do with the reality of what's happening. And the reality of what's happening is being totally vulnerable to who you are on the human. And in that vulnerability, you disappear. In this vulnerability of being yourself on the human level, which is whatever arises in the moment, it's not living through this idea of yourself, that is where you disappear. That's where the seeking ends. Love is the acceptance of this as it is. But that's the game of this. It's to love duality. It's to love the opposites of the good and the bad, and to be this animal, this human animal, that at the end of the day would do anything to survive, manipulates and destroys its environment to survive, but to see the love in it. And then on the human level, it's to expand more and more to that love. And the way that you expand more to that love is being so vulnerable and totally accepting. Totally, this is so beautiful. Totally accepting the good and the bad which lies in all of us. I've never claimed to be an enlightened human, and I don't want to be an enlightened human. My nature beyond the human is enlightened, but in the human world, it's the world of duality, of positives and negatives. And on the human level, my aspiration is to grow more and more towards that love and to totally accept the nature of it all and embrace the nature of it all. Makes me want to cry. I don't know if you can hear that. The other reason that it might be that we have to have this idea of enlightenment is because how it has to be sold. Because it's having a little dream. Because we're fickle creatures in a way, and we're used to this sales system of painting something as shiny and perfect. And when we get into this subject, it's like we have to have this perfection that we move towards because we don't know how to move something that's containing all of duality. It contains it all. And that's what waking up is holding all of this life. Every bit of it. And being totally humble to it. And does that benefit you on the level of the human that is moving towards survival? Sure. Yeah. It makes you incredibly powerful to embrace yourself. Not powerful like a dictator. Powerful as in you don't get bogged down by experiences. And your action is out of love rather than hate. Even if you slip into anger for moments or negativity for a moment, underneath that there's such a connection to that love. The human is aspiring to it. It can't help but aspire to that love because that's its source. So it doesn't waste energy in revenge or hatred. Or needless mental activity. Okay, we take some questions. Wow, that was a big talk. That was a big talk. Off I went. Yep, da da. You boop 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 boop. Hi, Fatias. Adios. Hello. Hi, Gina. Lip reading class. Yeah, that was funny. Hi, Claudia. Can't hear you, Lisa. Yep. Yeah. Hi, Martha. Yes, there is streaming now. Oh. Yes. Hello. We'll be silently listening to you. Thanks. Hi, Marcelo. Hi, Conrad. Hi, Fatima. Hi, dear Lisa. Could you please talk about jealousy, what it is, where does it come from? I can see that when it arises and starts bothering me, but don't know what to do with it except watching. Especially when it comes to my partner, it grows and grows. I think that jealousy is a condition of being a mammal. The reason that I say that is from my investigations in the mammal world. I noticed that other animals experience jealousy too. So Khaleesi does not like it if I give chicken to other dogs. Obviously I am the boss, so she has to tolerate it. She doesn't get to dictate, but she does not like it. And she does all sorts of things to suddenly start maintaining my attention when other dogs are around. Suddenly she's all like, hey Lisa, oopie 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 oop. Rest of the time she's like, yeah, fuck off. Yeah, go on. You go and sit over there, I'm sitting here. She's more like a cat than a dog. But so from my investigations when I've studied mammals, I did sorry, I'm such a nerd. I know I look like I'm not a nerd, but I really am. When I used to live in Thailand, where I got Khaleesi from, there was packs of dogs in all the places I lived. There was always packs of dogs, and then the last place that I lived there for about 4 or 5 months, and there were a big pack of dogs that lived on the beach, and every morning and evening I sat and watched them intensely. And dogs have jealousy, and it's very important for survival. The dogs didn't have jealousy, so when Khaleesi came into the pack, straight away all the females told her exactly what position she was in. And then if Khaleesi tried to sneak up to the head male dog, these girls were not having any of it. I mean, they were like, So jealousy is part of being a mammal. The thing that can happen is your brain can get stuck on it, and then it produces emotional discomfort, and your brain gets stuck on it dependent on your relationship, more than likely with your papa. I always talk about myself because I'm trying to give examples for people to understand things. I always feel like I'm exposing and talking about myself so much. So let me try and say this without talking about myself. Maybe you can imagine that I'm not talking about me. So there was this one girl. No. So if you imagine jealousy isn't simple because there's lots of other things involved. Because jealousy is a very natural feeling, and it's actually very sexual. If you really experience jealousy, it's a very sexual feeling. maybe it feels differently in other people, but it comes up as sexuality, like mine, and it's very primitive and animal-like. And if you aren't identified to it and not embarrassed, like, I can't let him see that I think that he's mine, and all these layers on top of it, then it gets heavy. But if you really embrace it, it's very sexual and empowering. That very raw feeling of jealousy. But then you've got other dynamics on top of it, because then you've got the trust issue as to whether you trust your partner. And this is very instinctual. This is something that you know in your body whether somebody's trustworthy or not. And this is something that I really had to learn over the years, to trust myself. Thing is so you know if somebody's trustworthy or not. And somebody might be trustworthy sometimes and then less trustworthy. So you've got that layer into it, which makes it complicated. And then you've got maybe past traumas where your trust has been broken before and you're reading the signals wrong of your partner. So basically, my advice is to just keep getting to know yourself and keep exploring it. It will present itself. Jealousy is very natural. You can embrace that and you can have loads of fun with it sexually. It's very invigorating. Then you've got these other trust issues, which can come from your parents, your dad, or your mum having trust issues or bad relationships, and just try to be as honest with yourself as you can, and try and have a partner in which you can explore this with them and they don't freak out about it. As long as you know that you can trust them. Because don't overexpose yourself to somebody that you can't trust, but how do you know if it's your issues or you can't trust them? If you're getting really stuck, then you could book a session with me and I could help explore, or you can talk it through with someone. I've been caught in that before, where I didn't trust someone and they convinced me to trust them. And the way they convinced me to trust them was using my bad experiences in childhood and saying that that was creating trust issues and making me, I was just having trauma around them, and I just couldn't imagine that somebody could do that. Like, I couldn't imagine in my being, I couldn't ever convince somebody that convince somebody that I was telling the truth from somebody's past trauma. I just couldn't imagine anyone ever doing that, so I just trusted them over myself. So it's also complicated. Like, so sometimes maybe working with someone, if you're really struggling, might be helpful. Like, that was a combination of spirituality and the psychology stuff, and not trusting. Like, that to me was a big lesson about trusting myself. Like, my internal was saying, don't trust them. And then they were coming back, oh, this is past trauma, this is from your childhood. But they were lying and deceiving. That was painful, but an amazing lesson. Amazing lesson to myself. It was actually really liberating as well. Like, I was really beautiful as well. It was the perfect lesson. And that happened after my big awakening. So if any of you are in any stories about the perfect human being, I can eradicate it with that story. I got, so that was after, like, I got caught in trusting the mind over the flow. It was a very nice experience. It really had an effect on me, on my character, on my personality. Because when you've had, so you can relate to this, so when you've had trauma in your childhood, like one of the things is that normally somebody has broken your trust. And then what happens is not only do you have problems trusting other people, but primarily you have problems trusting yourself. And that was just such an extreme situation because I just couldn't imagine that somebody could do that. It wasn't, I'd never considered that somebody could use it in that way. And it doesn't mean that person was bad, not at all. They were just firing off from their conditioning. There's no good or bad. Their conditioning was that at all costs they can't be found out, because to them being found out meant death. It's not that they were really evil or bad person. It just was that being found out was the worst possible scenario for them. It's amazing, all these human dynamics. And I knew, internally I knew, because, and the way you know how to trust yourself is that it feels expansive. Like I just knew it was like relaxing, but I just couldn't, I couldn't in my head accept that somebody could lie in that way. But in my belly I just knew, and when I thought about it, it just felt right. Like it felt right. And it felt wrong to think, like it felt expansive, even though it's not very nice to think somebody's lying. It felt right. It was relaxing when I thought about it. But if you're getting confused, it's best to work with somebody so you can book a session, because it's also, it's delicate because of past conditioning as well. And humans are complicated, like our relationships together are complicated. And it felt bad. When they convinced me out of it, it felt wrong in my body. But my mind just couldn't piece that together. Our minds are very good at overlooking things, or not looking at things, or overthinking something, or putting particular stories on, dependent on our past experiences, which is what they're meant to do. So this is why conditioning can never totally leave. Like, we're meant to be like that. We're meant to compare past experiences to present, but there's also this other part of us, this other expansive part to us that knows that's not to do with the mind, that's not to do with what happened in the past. When you invest too much in the mind, then it's just constant past, future, past, future, past, future, and it becomes negative, because the mind is always wanting to fix problems. So it's always looking for problems. It just becomes more and more negative. Whereas this other way is expansive. It's like you put the information in the mind, and then this other way is expansive and freeing on the human level. It's a different way on the human level of being. It's beautiful. And yeah, you're going to trip over and fall, but that's life. That's what happens in life. And then you get back up again and you dust yourself off. If you're totally involved in the mind, then you can't pick yourself up and dust yourself off. You carry that hatred, or you carry that want to revenge or wanting something inside your body, and then you're stuck in time. I don't know if that helps. Hey Vishal, could you write out what you would like to talk about, just because there's so many questions, so I would appreciate that. You just have to say a couple of sentences. And then it just helps you become more clear as well. Hey Lisa, nice tracks today, thank you. Ooh, me smiley disappeared. Here you go. That's a learning edge for me at times in the moment. What feels bad in the body because of mind triggered, or if it's a real boundary. Yeah. It's maybe something, Amy, that you always having to readdress. Like, what is a thought here? What is an old condition? And what is a boundary? And it's like always adjusting the dials. Like not trying to get to this destination or to this end place. Like always trying to be as vulnerable and open to what you are now. And maybe there's always more things that we can expand from. So it's like never trying to get to the end, because there is no end. Hey Aspawn. Advanced studio with volume control and 2 cameras. This intro was interesting. Must be more aware of what I transfer to others in conversations. It's more like it's more to do with when you're trying to relieve something, or from this more expansive place. Like they're 2 different energies. So beautiful. Hi Thomas, so beautiful song. Wow. Animals have a clear intuition for sure. I used to have a parrot that would copy the sound of the telephone and ring it just a few seconds before it would actually ring. So many more examples like this from animals. I can get seriously annoyed, downright pissed, when playing competitive manipulating games. Gets far too addictive, negative and mental for me. So I do it less and less these days. Quick and simple fix. Think I'm getting far too old for that stuff anyways. So beautifully expressed, Lisa. Feels so true and real. Appreciating and expecting all good and bad. Letting go of illusions, accepting and forgiving. This is ultimate freedom. Thanks, Thomas. Hello, Lisa. Lovely to be here with you again. That was a really good talk. Thanks. Oh, thanks, Marie. Hi, Bia. Hi, Ben. I have a question about emptiness. Go for it, Ben. You would like to speak, or you want to write it out? Hello, Lisa. Please can we talk about I am, if possible? Thanks a lot. Sure. Love it when you get so excited about this subject. It's so amazing. Thank you as always, Lisa. Lots of love. Enjoying your lovely scarf collection too. Yeah, it's because obviously it's very hot here. So it's like what it was when you were here last year. So the scarf has to come on when I do the talk. But yeah, it makes me remember what a lovely collection I have. Hi Lisa. Hi Sandra. I've made this mistake. overexposing myself to others accidentally, and then later realizing, oops, I made a misjudgment of character later on. Yeah, it happens. And just remember, it's not about being perfect. It's that when those things happen, you use the lesson from it. You don't look at it as negatively. It's life giving you a gift, and you expand from that, from every situation. Thanks, Isabel, that's super cute. Shall I call? I have a sense of undercurrent of nothingness that I find uncomfortable and constantly trying to avoid that feeling by filling my time up. How can I overcome it? Speaking is good. Shall I call? Yes. I'm just going to go to the toilet actually first, Ben, and then we shall speak. Did you think I'd live without you? Did you? Did you think I'd live without you? I hadn't. I hadn't. Hey. Hello. Let me just have a look at what's happening here. Let me minus some. Hey, Ben.
Does that sound better?
Yeah, you were like a robot before. Or maybe it was me that was like a robot.
No, there's something wrong with my PC. Every time I speak to someone on Skype, the first time it always sounds like chipmunks.
Yeah. Well,
thank you so much for taking my call.
with pleasure.
And thank you very much for your talks. You know, I really love them so much.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love doing it too.
The question I had was, I hope I can explain it clearly. So basically, I work a lot from the computer, and I find that I really enjoy my work, and spend a lot of time troubleshooting things. But I take breaks quite often, and it's not limited to just the breaks. But I find that when I take my breaks, from that movement from being very busy and full, my mind being very occupied, and then moving to a break where suddenly my mind's not occupied anymore, I find it quite uncomfortable. And in fact, and even after I finish work for the day, I have a tendency to try and fill up my mind, whether it's by, checking my phone, watching films, and it's almost like I can feel a kind of, I don't know, my sense of life is it seems very much like there's a big nothing. It's very empty. There's nothing you can hold on to. And so I have like a very strong desire to try and hold on, it's something to hold on to, but there's nothing to hold on to. And so I try and fill that time up, or fill my mind up. I might, if I've been working on something on the computer, when I've finished, I'll kind of mentally repeat it in my head to try and kind of fill that gap up. And I suppose, I was just looking for some advice around that.
Have you ever done meditation?
Yes, I've done, I do, I do meditation, but maybe not regularly enough. Maybe I have been a little bit kind of relaxed about it and a little bit ad hoc. But, maybe once, I did have a meditation practice of about, half an hour in the mornings, but that's kind of dropped recently.
Yeah. And what does your body feel like now?
Full of nervous energy.
Oh yeah, because you're speaking to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you aware of your body when you come away from your computer and you have a break? Are you aware of your body?
No, I think I'm probably much more in my head. So
your head is telling you to do something, but you also have some sort of awareness that you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And how do you know that you're uncomfortable?
No, I can feel it. I can feel the uncomfort.
And is that in your shoulders, or where do you feel that discomfort?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I could place it, actually. I don't know if I felt it. It's just a kind of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is basically seeking energy. So this discomfort is this seeking energy which is afraid of not existing. And it's afraid of many things, but it's predominantly afraid of being in relationship with this world and not existing and dying. And I think it fears that, even though it might have lots of stories, there's some sort of fear of not existing when you die, and that not existing looks like something, so this imagination of nothing. So this fear of nothing when you die, of everything disappearing that you have. And that tends to be very unconscious. You're not very conscious when you're feeling it. And it leads to all types of actions. So it can lead to compulsive talking. It can lead to always wanting to socialize, always wanting to be with your partner, always wanting to do something, which can make you really successful at producing things in this life. But it's basically a fear of most probably not existing, of nothing. A fear directly of that, but not wanting to acknowledge it. It goes through layers. And you'll have thought processes around it. So your brain will have developed habits and ways of being out of that. So your neural pathways will... So when you begin to feel this nothingness, this emptiness, your brain will think of a particular thing. So your brain will fire off that it's bored, or these people are boring, or why do you have a boring life, or that you need more activity. It will have particular ways of dealing with it. And then at the root of it is this fear of being alive, and fear of losing that life, and losing that life to something that does not exist. It's amazing how astute our bodies are, because That's what's actually happening all the time, is that our life is disappearing into nothing. Like, who you think you are isn't a solid entity, so it's always disappearing into this massive void of emptiness all the time. And your body kind of knows that. Like, your body is in line with that, and then it gets sort of translated by the mind, or the mind can't fathom it because the mind can't imagine nothing, and it sort of gets all muddled up and translates it into all these human emotional problems and problems in your life.
So it's a kind of misconception.
Yeah, I mean, all suffering comes from the misconception that you exist separately from life. But your nature is that emptiness. Who you are is that emptiness. Everything that you're experiencing now, even you, is coming directly from that emptiness and disappearing back into that emptiness. It's the foundation of this life. And the emptiness isn't anything you could imagine. So our brains try to translate emptiness into imagining losing everything, but it's not even anything you can imagine. You can't even see this emptiness. You can't feel it. You can't perceive it, but it's here. The source of everything is nothing. And that's total freedom. You can't be free on the human level when you believe that freedom is found in the flow of things, because you're always attached to things then. The reset button is that everything comes from that emptiness. Everything's clean, everything's being purified. Even the worst and most awful acts and the most beautiful and in line acts are being purified in this moment, because there's nothing that's experiencing all of this. There's not a solid entity that's experiencing all of this. It becomes uncomfortable when you believe that an entity is experiencing this, and this you is a bundle of energy that's looking at things and experiencing things.
Oh, thank you. That's really, it feels very right. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, just investigate where is anything coming from, including that investigation. Like, where is the sound of my voice coming from? You've been taught it's coming from Lisa, but that's even an abstract idea, because what's Lisa? And then you've been taught, well, Lisa's something going in time, and Lisa's speaking it from time. But what's the actual direct experience? This can be terrifying. The direct experience is that everything's coming out of mystery. But you have to see through all the illusions and the tricks of the mind, and you've developed this personality and these conditions, and these conditioning and your personality can be uncomfortable and produce discomfort, and you have to see the illusion of that. You know, that when your mind screams boredom, it's not actually the reality of what's happening. This is boring, I don't like this. But those are thoughts appearing, and that you don't necessarily have to run away, and that moving and doing something isn't necessarily the answer. You have to see through all the tricks and the illusions. It doesn't mean changing that condition. Maybe you've always got a character that likes doing things. It doesn't mean changing it as such. It's seeing through it, that it's not true, it's not reality. Reality is mystery. Reality is emptiness, not a thing appearing as all things. We can't find the source of this, and the source of this has to be right here. It can't be time, because time never exists. Time is always an imagination that's appearing here.
It's very interesting listening to what you say. I don't, what the words are pointing to. It's quite, yeah.
And the trick is that your brain has thoughts. Sounds really simple. So your brain has thoughts, your body has feelings, and then the brain says they're real, and the brain says we've got to get away from these feelings. And then you're on this endless loop, like a hamster running in a ball, always trying to escape your feelings. And it's like you escape your feelings right here. That freedom that you look for is right here. So you can have anger, you can have rage, you can have jealousy, you can have disaster, but it's free because it's not happening to anyone. When you try to block out any part of experiencing, then you're running in time, you're running in imagination.
You're right. There's quite a lot to digest.
Yeah, you can watch it back on YouTube. Yeah, it is a lot.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Lisa.
thank you.
No, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Zoom Thomas. Yeah, I can completely relate to this, especially when I was younger. The unveiling feeling from being really in the headspace to going to peace. The transition can be really tough. For me, it came from identifying too much with whatever I was doing at any given time, and the shallowness of not doing what felt really right. Oh yeah, I can take those out. So if anyone else would like to call, you just have to write. I think we're getting towards the end now. I enjoyed that so much that it's over so quickly. Okay. Oh, can I call? Sure, Chris. Okay, you're the last person to call in. You wanted to talk about the I amness.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Chris. Nice to speak with you.
Yeah, hi, Lisa. I have my video off and I need to...
You just need to mute the volume on live stream.
Yes, 1 second.
I can't hear it.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I couldn't hear it before, actually.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, I'm here. Hello? Hey, Chris.
Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Lisa. I promise I won't keep you long. This will be very short because I know you want to have your dinner and walk Khaleesi.
Routine is amazing.
I'll be very respectful that, I just actually had this one question which was sort of slightly maybe related to this gentleman calling right before.
Yeah.
And what's happening?
I think you've just got the volume on of live stream. So YouTube
Yes,
has got the
sorry.
volume on. That's okay.
So can we talk now?
Yeah. I can't really hear it that much. It's more like a whisper in the background.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hey, Phyllis. Okay, Chris can't work out the volume, so maybe that's the end of the live stream. So nice, guys. Thank you very much for writing, asking questions, calling in. It's lovely to share with you. I really love it. So thank you. And I will be here on Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. Okay, lots of love, guys. Bye.